Welcome back to Beyond the Headline, everyone, where we discuss the realities of launching, scaling, and investing in a business. I'm really excited you're here today because I'm here with Anna Counselman, the co-founder and head of operations at Upstart. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Anna, can we start out with you introducing us how you're helping people just like me be financially fit?
Sure. Basically, Upstart is an online lending platform. So we're basically about providing access to capital to young people. The way that we do that is by looking at not just your traditional credit score, but we look at where you went to school, what you studied, SAT score, GPA. So if you're somebody who doesn't have a great credit score because you don't have a long history of credit, we can help you get access to capital. And the way that it helps most people get financially fit, at least in today's world, a lot of people come to us that are probably a few years out of school. Our average borrower is about 28 years old, and they're coming to us to refinance some kind of expensive debt they have. So a lot of people will come to refinance their credit card debt because they started off their life kind of early on, needed to move somewhere, do something. The only way they could get capital is credit cards, and now they find themselves in the situation where they're in this debt and there's just like no light at the end of the tunnel because it's so expensive that you keep paying these monthly minimum payments and you just are never going to get out of it. So they come to Upstart, and instead of just looking at their credit, we look at kind of the whole person, their education, their earning potential, their current or future job offers, things like that. And then based on that, we can find kind of the diamonds in the rough. And then we can give you a much better interest rate. So what you can do is go pay off your expensive debt and then get on kind of a monthly payment plan so that in 3 years, you can be debt free. And I think if you think about the continuum of financial fitness, the very first thing you need to do is get out of debt. Before you can think about savings, investments, things like that, you need to figure out what's your most expensive debt and get out of it. And that's what a lot of people are currently using Upstart for.
Can you explain how it works too? Because the process is supremely simple.
Yeah, thank you. We really work hard. We're obsessed with the user experience. Like, we're a tech company first and foremost, like bank kind of distant, financial services really distant second. And so we really obsess over like the number of clicks and how to get people through the process really quickly. But basically, you complete a 3-minute application online where we just ask you some information about who you are, where you went to school, if you're currently working, if you have a job offer. At the end of that process, we'll be able to tell you if you qualify for a loan, how much you qualify for, and what the interest rate will be on that loan. If you decide to move forward, we'll ask you for a couple of supporting documents. That might be like a pay stub to verify how much you're making, or if you choose, you can just connect your bank account and then we'll do all that stuff for you. And then after that, once you're verified, if you accept your loan by 5 p.m. Eastern, you'll get your money the next business day. So it's pretty quick process.
Before we dive into where you guys are going, let's go back to the founding days when your co-founder Dave came and told you this idea when you guys were both at Google.
Yeah, sure. So Dave and I were kind of chatting about this idea that, and it was kind of inspired by this conversation he had with his nephew, but basically how young people have really limited access to capital, and that it limits their choices in terms of what they can do with their life or what they want to do. And it's ironic because at that time, making a different choice can make a huge difference. So it can be the difference between, moving across the country to be in Silicon Valley to join that like startup that you're dreaming of joining. Like, most likely they're not going to fly you across the country for you to interview, things like that. It might be the difference of, getting your first apartment. It might be the difference of like taking a course and getting into, we are seeing a lot of people take these like developer boot camps and getting into coding, getting into that career path or something else. And so we were saying, like, it's interesting because even 10 years later, if someone was to offer me, $10,000 at a great interest rate, it really can't dramatically make a difference in my life. Versus at 22, it really can. And so we were kind of digging into this, saying like, okay, so why is it that there's not really a lot of capital available to young people? And what we found is the reason for that is because mainly banks rely on a credit report as kind of their sole thing they use to make credit decisions. And by definition, if you're a young person, you won't have a long credit history, so you won't have a great credit score, and you'll be called what's a thin file borrower, meaning like your credit file is thin. And so we just thought, okay, well, at Google, we'd gotten really good at hiring young people to do like really crazy jobs in a very dynamic environment that was changing all the time. I think my job there changed every 6 months or so into something I'd never done before, that no one's ever done before. And so we just made bets on young people based on their like proven track records. So, academic performance, SAT scores, like where they went to school, what they chose to study, leadership activities, things like that. And we were like, okay, well, so there's all this data, all these signals about young people that would be potentially predictive of how they would behave in their financial life. And banks are just completely ignoring it. And sort of a light bulb went off like, wow, if you use this data, which, we're Google people, so we love data and like being able to use it to make the world better. So there's all this data and it can help solve a very real problem. Let's go do it. No one else is out there doing it. Let's go do that. Let's go help young people get access to capital on more fair terms than they're getting today. And let's see what that can do. And so that was kind of the initial conversation. And I think before that conversation, I was like, I love Google. I'll be here forever. It's not like I was just dying to be an entrepreneur. And I came home and I was like, I think I can't not do this. Like, I have to do this. And so I came in on Monday and like gave my notice, and that was the end. And I haven't looked back.
I think you guys have a culture of not looking back and going forward quickly.
Yeah.
You and I were just talking about the pivot that you guys made from the start when you had more of a Kickstarter for people model. Tell us about the pivot and, like you said, the 3-month sprint.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I guess, when we first started, to give more context, the concept was basically letting investors basically buy a share of someone's future income and then have them pay that back over time. So again, the concept is getting access to capital on better terms. And we thought, hey, if you shared a portion of your income, you basically by definition never pay back more than you can afford because it stays constant. And so it was very interesting and intellectually stimulating, but it required so much education on both sides of the market, both the borrowers and the investors, of like, what is this and how does it work? And we just felt like there was a lot of friction. So at one point, Dave, Paul, and I went out for coffee, and we were like, we should probably launch a second product and see if we could make something that's a lot easier for people to understand. So take that data model that we built to understand kind of future earning potential and just target it at something that's more familiar to people, like a loan. And so we spent like a couple of weeks as a company, kind of as a full company. We involved everyone in the conversation, like, okay, this is what we're thinking about. Should we do this? Should we not do this? And then we made a decision. And once we made a decision, we just went on this like mad sprint. It was called Project Fast and Furious. And we just went and like everyone just worked crazy hard, crazy fast to make the transition. And it was awesome because the whole company kind of rallied around this. We often get the question of like, did you lose anybody in the pivot because, people signed up for this one model and you did this other thing? And we didn't lose anybody. Everyone just buckled down and said like, look, this is what we're trying to do in the world. We think we can help more people get money in this way versus the way we're doing it. And so everybody rallied. And in 3 months, we had a new website, a new product, a new flow, and a new everything. And once we had loans out there for I think it was weeks from the launch where we realized, wow, like this is just a completely different business. These things are growing so much faster than we ever saw in the income share world. So we decided to retire that other product and put our full focus on loans. But as I mentioned to you, I think we did about 3 million in originations in the total history of income share agreements, and we're at about 180 million, a year and some change after launching loans. So it's just been very, very different. And so kind of realizing what real growth feels like. So that's how it worked.
As you discuss speed and everyone buckling down, that's actually how I learned about Upstart, is that great piece in First Round Review, right. Speed as a Habit. Yeah. How do you guys balance speed and sustainability?
So I think, there's a couple of things. I mean, some of the speed isn't about like making people work insanely hard all the time. Some of speed is just about making fast decisions and removing roadblocks really quickly and being very, very focused and not being like afraid to just make a call and keep going, there's not a sustainability like factor to that, if you will, right? Because the speed at which you make decision is more about the discipline with which you make decisions versus like working harder or whatever. So I don't think that's something that's not a resource that gets exhausted. And a big part of this is like our CEO being like just a big driving force and like pushing us to go fast and making decisions and moving us forward. The other part of it is we definitely have moments where everybody has to sprint really hard, and that actually means everyone is working really hard. So, during the pivot was definitely a time where we had super aggressive timelines. Everybody was, burning the midnight oil or whatever to just get those things done. And I would say those things kind of come in spurts. And so, you have this 3 months crazy sprint, and then you have a little bit of like breathing room, and you can recalibrate. And then we're actually going through another sprint right now because our business pretty much doubled overnight from August to September. So we're on this like mad sprint to make all these operational product launches because we just can't handle all the borrowers that are coming to us, which is an awesome problem to have, but it's another sprint. And I imagine once we get over this hump, like we'll make ourselves much better, much more efficient, and then people will have breathing room again. But like as a company, we have a lot of policies and things. Like, for example, we have unlimited vacation. Like our policy is when you need vacation, just take it. And just we trust the people that we hire to just get the job done. And so I think we actually do a pretty good job of kind of balancing the kind of working hard with, having a life outside of work and things like that. So I think that's kind of what makes it sustainable, or makes the speed sustainable.
How about for you as your role as head of operation? What's the day-to-day?
Oh my God. Let's see. Well, first of all, I think one of the cool things about A, being in a startup, and B, being in operations is like no 2 days are the same. So, there are some days that I come in and it's a million interviews because we're hiring like crazy and we're growing. There's, days where we have investor meetings. There are days where we're making decisions as a leadership team, so I'm spending a lot of time in that. There are days where I have to just sit in front of a spreadsheet and figure out like, okay, what does operations look like in 2 years, and how much is it going to cost, and what's going to happen. So I would say, generally my day is a combination of lots and lots of talking to different people, whether that's in meetings and one-on-ones and walking the floor in operations, with some balance of like email and long format thinking work. But it's really one day you come in and like your application's doubled and whatever plans you had are going out the window and you're figuring out like, okay, we're just going to figure out what product improvements we need right now that are going to speed us up. And then you're working with product team. So I guess no 2 days are the same.
As you work with each of those teams, and like you're saying, that's your role when you see that the applications have doubled, it's your job to make sure everyone's up to speed. Yeah. What have you learned about optimizing process in a way that empowers your team instead of being like, oh my God, we have double the applications, what are we going to do?
Yeah, well, I think this is probably more a lesson I learned at Google, but most kind of operational problems really should get solved at the product level before they even become operational issues. So, and we really empower the team to think that way. First of all, we ask everyone always to like question the status quo. If you see an opportunity for improvement, like flag it, tell someone, add it to, we have a kind of running wish list of product improvements that would help our borrowers get through the process easier. And so a big part of it is just partnering with the product team and having a very tight feedback loop where, things like, we have borrowers that keep adding their spouse's income, for example, to their application, and we can't consider it, but it creates this like back and forth with the borrower, creates a bunch of operational work. The right way to solve that is not like working harder and faster to process those applications. The way to solve that problem is to make the initial sign-up flow easier so that the borrower understands that they should just include their own income and things like that. So I would say that's the first thing, is like really tight feedback loop with product so that you can fix the problems so that they don't occur in the first place. And I think we talk so much about that. We do so much with the information people provide. So like in this last sprint, everyone got to add ideas. Everyone on the team, like from people that are taking phone calls to the senior leaders, got to add ideas about how we can make things better. And then the product team has just run really fast with implementing them, and they can see the change. So I think that like really inspires people to volunteer. And then the second thing is, I think generally we try very hard to build a culture of entrepreneurship, which means like if you find a problem, you should see it as an opportunity and a chance to like contribute and fix something. Versus, the kind of culture where you find a problem and you are looking for your manager to go fix it for you. So, and that's everything from really small things to really big things. Like if everyone on your team kind of has this mentality of like, hey, if I find something, I get an opportunity to like work on a cool project to fix it, then you kind of have this self-sustaining business where everybody's constantly looking for ways to make things better, looking for ways to make the customer experience better, so that you just have this kind of self-cleaning mechanism of improvement, and it doesn't just come from above, like get dictated by the leadership team. That's how things were run at Google very much so, and that's one of the things that we really tried to carry over to Upstart.
I really like that because I think it touches very well on the balance of being a super fast startup and making changes, but keeping that sustainability so things aren't out of whack and hyper growth ends up to closing in 2 years or something.
Right, exactly.
As you look back on what's been a whirlwind so far,
yeah.
What do you think of as the highlight?
The highlight. I was, as we were talking before, I think now is kind of the highlight, because we have this sort of, I think we can comfortably say there's a product market fit because we have more, customers that we can handle, which is great. That's an awesome problem to have. We've built an amazing team. Like I don't even know the right word to use. I almost use the word humble, but that gets to a humble brag. But I just am always so inspired by the kind of team that we were able to build, both like all across the company, starting from the leadership team, but all the way down to like the person that picks up the phone when a borrower calls in. That it's such a highlight to see, just to see this team in action. Like I'm constantly pleasantly surprised by the kinds of things that people deliver, by the sort of kind of experience that we're able to provide to our customers. So I would say now is probably one of the biggest highlights, but they've obviously been a lot of moments along the way.
When you think of the team, I know one of your values is that you should think of every opportunity as a chance to prove how good you are. And I love that. And I think it lends to what you were saying, that you try to empower a team of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
For individuals who are just coming in, especially if they're younger or they're new to startups, how do you empower them to feel that way? Because it's a new way of thinking.
Yeah. We do a lot of training with people. And so when they first come in, actually, we do this like kind of welcome to Upstart kind of training, at least on my team. That doesn't, there's each team kind of does individual things, but for us, we actually go through a training and we say like, look, think of every opportunity as a chance to prove how good you are, no matter how small. Because the reality is, when you're just getting started in your career, like you're not going to be working on incredibly glamorous things, because you have to prove yourself on something that's more safe for you to do as a young person. But, if you're the person like picking up the phone and calling to customers, like make it your mission to like make the most calls, or have the highest customer satisfaction rating, or have somebody mention you in a Credit Karma review because you just went above and beyond. And like that, proving yourself in that context will open up like more opportunities for you down the line. Because when I think of like, okay, like who's good and ready to be promoted for the next opportunity, like the person that prove themselves on that first task is going to be the one that comes to mind. So we actually kind of sit down and talk to people about that when they first get started, and kind of try to instill this. And hopefully they see it all around them too, like the people that are kind of raising their hand for opportunities, that are like volunteering to go above and beyond, are also the ones that are kind of getting promoted and getting opportunities, so it becomes visible. We also, we do this company-wide meeting every Thursday. It's called TGIT. It's something we took from Google, where it's just an all-company, all-hands, where we give updates on kind of everything that's going on, the good, bad, and the ugly. And people can ask questions on any topic and we'll answer them. And a lot of the times, like things that come up are, we should make this improvement, or would it be okay if we had this? And the answer a lot of the time is like, yes. If you find it, fix it, like run with that. Like this doesn't, if you want to have, whatever, like different, if you want to have a mentor program, if you want to have a shuttle that takes you from Caltrain to our office, if you think that the borrower site experience is too slow, like, great, like, take the opportunity to fix it. No one's going to come down and fix it for you. So we sort of reiterate that message. And then, of course, like, we celebrate successes. So when people, go and do that, like, we make sure that we recognize them, whether that's with like more opportunity or just highlighting their achievements or monetary or whatever it is, so that you tighten that feedback loop again. If you act a certain way and you get rewarded for it, you're likely to act that way again. So that's how I think about it.
Do you see that rewarding system, whether, like you said, it's a thank you or potentially a promotion, is that individual and unique to every person? Just
Well,
personality-wise, like how they respond.
yeah, I mean, there's certainly differences, and some people feel rewarded when they get public recognition, and other people can't stand public recognition and would much rather like a private thank you note, or some people are very motivated by salary, and other people are motivated by like opportunity and growth. So you do have to tailor it. Tailor your approach as a manager. You kind of have to tailor your approach to the right person. It can't be a one size fits all.
I like that. It's not a one size fits all. It's a good one. As
Yeah.
you guys move forward and you have a lot more money in the bank, things are going really well, and the team's growing very fast. I think you guys, the goal is to be up to 60 by the end of the year.
Well, just on my team, for 60 by the end of the year. On the whole, all of Upstart, that'll probably put us closer to it'll be over 100 people, I think. So, but yes, we're growing really fast.
Very fast. How are you going to keep that scrappy mentality when it was just, that first group of 10 as you move forward?
That is a great question, and I think that is a challenge of that companies struggle with. I think what we say to people is like, look, if you like, you can't do it from the leadership team. You can't say like, I want the company to be nimble and then have it be nimble. So basically, like, you have to set an example. So you have to act nimble. So you have to make fast decisions. You have to launch things quickly. You have to, not like dilly-dally and build consensus forever before moving forward. So you have to kind of set that example. But then, what we're asking from all of our employees is like, be the change you want to be in the world. Like, you are now the more senior people on the team. Like, you have to like be fast and nimble and continue to embody these traits. And then I think like, so part of it is just kind of empowering our team to be that way. Part of it is hiring that way. So, when we are interviewing people, we're looking for people that are like, get shit done kind of people. And we're looking for evidence of them doing that in their life. And we're asking questions about that. So part of it is kind of recruiting towards this kind of person. And last but not least is being very vigilant about not letting bureaucracy like build up. Because, one of the things that can start happening in bigger companies is like, these committees to make decisions and things like that. And we just have to stay very vigilant that like to fight bureaucracy at any opportunity. So I think that's how we'll do it.
Love it.
So hiring the right people, asking those people to maintain the culture, and then fighting bureaucracy.
I feel like I just got a mini class on culture. This is great. Before we go, Anna, I'd love to end with just a few life questions that we always like to ask at the end of our conversations. What's something you wish you had more time to do?
Everything. I mean, I have a little 2-year-old, so I always wish I could spend more time with him. But I've gotten comfortable with spending really high quality time, that and kind of compensating for it that way. I also would like to spend more time doing yoga because that is one of the things that keeps me balanced with like all the craziness of startup, mom world, all those things. So if I had more time for yoga, I think that would be
a good one.
That would be great.
So I don't think this one lends to the yoga, but if you were going to be an ice cream flavor, what flavor would you be?
I would be like some kind of a like chocolate shell with vanilla in the middle with like salty sprinkles and like caramel. Like, so basically I think I have a lot of different facets to my personality, and so sometimes I'm salty, sometimes I'm sweet, sometimes I'm, vanilla flavored or whatever. So it would be something like that.
That's a good one. All right, last question, and this one's more
Sure.
serious than ice cream,
Sure.
just a small bit.
Okay.
If you could see one change happen in the world over the next 10 years, what would you want to see?
Um, I think women's rights in third world countries. I think that's one of the biggest national security issues of our time. So I think if we could solve that problem, a lot of the other problems we see in the world would go away.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
taking the time to share your work with us. How can everyone stay up to date with Upstart and all of the great things you guys are doing?
Go to www.upstart.com.
And it's super simple. I almost did it for fun
simple.
last night just because it was going so fast.
Yeah, it's super simple, really fast. Check us out there. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay.